All right, here we go. Here's the story from the AP. Trump returns to New York to face historic criminal charges. So as I stated in the opening of the show, if Donald Trump made the decision not to surrender, I think this country would get ripped apart. New York would be complaining he's criminally wanted. We want Florida to return him. As with any criminal, Florida, Ron DeSantis would be like, I'm not getting involved in this. I'm not going to do it. The feds probably wouldn't move in. But Donald Trump, I believe, cares about this country. And so I think he realizes what would happen if he does defy this indictment. I also think he sees a tremendous benefit as his polling has skyrocketed, his fundraising has skyrocketed. So he's saying, you know what? I'll give you exactly what you want and you will regret it. So the latest story is President Trump returned to New York from his Florida estate Monday to face historic booking and arraignment on hush money charges. They say that, but it's 34 counts, so it could be more. They say already months into a third campaign to reclaim the White House, Trump and his advisors seem to relish the attention. Cable networks followed his plane at airports in Florida and New York with video from the air. I mean, I view this as a complete backlash, a complete backfiring for Democrats. He raised $5 million, $4 million in a day, $5 million over 2 days. His polling is up 30 points, 33 points. Ron DeSantis has completely collapsed against him in the GOP primary. Trump could not have asked for something better to help his campaign.
Except for the fact he might go to jail. Besides that, it's great.
Yeah. Well, here's a question I have for you. Do you think Democrat jurors in New York will acquit Donald Trump?
No. No, I mean.
So he's going to jail.
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, first of all, there's a lot of legal uncertainty here. Could be a judge could say this is a misdemeanor, not a felony. It is a New York judge. So that might not happen. There could be a long process of jury selection. 34 counts can get reduced down to 5 or 6. There's also sentencing, right? So, I mean, God forbid Donald Trump actually gets convicted. But if that ends up happening, you have someone who's never been convicted of a crime before, so you could plea in front of the judge like, hey, this should be a misdemeanor that you call a felony. The precedent in New York is saying that if you lob Molotov cocktails at police cars, you don't get serious jail time. Mm-hmm. We give $21,000 to BLM rioters. My client should get community service, which I think would be hilarious to have Donald Trump do community service. But as kind of...
Everyone would love him on that.
Right? No, I mean, like, go clean up the Brooklyn Bridge. And it would be the most watched live stream community service
Palestine. 20 years ago, if someone like Donald Trump was charged and convicted with a misdemeanor, and then the sentence was going to be community service, the lawyer would say, perhaps our client can make a large contribution to various charities in the community in lieu of community service. And they would say yes. Being Donald Trump, I don't think they would do that. And your point about BLM, while correct, I don't think applies to people in New York City.
No, I'm just saying there's a broader question legally.
I get that.
Of the whole trend is relaxed on crime. And
but come on.
There's an equal protection. There's a 14th Amendment claim that can be made.
Good luck.
No, I agree with you. I'm as cynical as you are, Tim. Yeah. But at some point, you're going to run into some backstop that could at least slow this down. And especially
maybe.
And then also, Tim, before you go to jail, you get an appeal. And the appellate courts are a lot saner than the original criminal courts.
So Trump is not allowed to leave the state.
Okay, that's a potential. Yeah.
Do you think that's going to happen?
So I cannot imagine a circumstance where New York jurors acquit Donald Trump.
No, I can't imagine that either.
I cannot imagine a circumstance.
Just takes one.
Yeah, but then it's just a mistrial, and then it's
so that we're dealing with time, right?
And so they'll say, right now Donald Trump has gone to New York voluntarily. He's going to surrender.
I'm glad he did.
I don't believe there's a strong probability a judge remands him into custody because of the fear of what would happen if they do.
But it would be they don't do that in New York anymore.
But we're talking about Donald Trump. But outside of that, the political ramifications, I don't think it will happen. However, I do think there's a possibility the judge says, Mr. Trump, you own several high-end properties in New York City where you can easily reside. Do not leave the state for the duration of this trial. He will not be able to campaign. And the judge is going to say, whether or not you campaign for president is not our fault. You are being criminally charged. That would be
That's
big.
A possibility.
Right. And I got to be honest, when it comes to the Molotov cocktail thing, I even envisioned a possibility where when Trump's lawyer politely argues to the judge, New York City's laws are very lax in terms of crimes committed. This is not a violent offender. And then if they reference just recently, two young people were firebombing police vehicles and were given an opportunity, the judge will say, how dare you question the motives of people challenging the white supremacy of this nation? Donald Trump is a white. I would not be surprised if
You're
that's
more
what happened.
cynical than I am.
Did you see what
Do you
Eric
think
Adams
a
said
New York
today?
City judge?
No,
gonna
I
be
don't.
like-
I'm not as like forthright in just thinking the whole legal system will collapse. Here's why I think you might be wrong, Tim, just to play devil's advocate, is that the room for error here is very limited. Every comma is going to be dissected by the legal community here. People could get disbarred. This is not some sort of fringe case in Ithaca, New York. Everybody involved in this is going to be examined on the appellate level. They could lose their law license. There could be complaints filed against them. You might be right. The whole system might be so corroded and might be so poisoned. However, I think that because of I think this is my prediction, they're going to just blink and just keep their head down and act as if this is a regular crime and not do anything too unusual and say, this is the law and we follow it and this is precedent, fine, you can go out, no
But that
bail.
means jail. 34 counts?
Well, hold on, not necessarily.
They're
No.
misdemeanors, though.
Well, they're
And
misdemeanors. They
there's at least
upgraded.
one felony.
And
No.
34 counts doesn't mean you go to jail, by the way. I mean, it's just you could have one action that you have 34 different points. For example, you could get charged for fraud and you make 34 phone calls, and it's all on the U.S. attorney or on the charging documents of the prosecutor to determine how many counts there are. There are U.S. attorneys' offices in America that are well known. They're notorious for 99 count indictments just to do it.
So why? So let's look at it this way. Why would they indict Donald Trump in the first place?
I have a theory as to why. It's revenge. This
Revenge for winning the presidency?
No, it's more than that. It's revenge for stealing the Kravitz Center from them.
Explain that.
Well, hold on. No, we know
tell
this in the psychological literature. Trauma is a very, very powerful thing. These people were traumatized and humiliated that night.
Oh, yeah.
They thought that was going to be a wedding ceremony. Think of it. They wore their best clothes. They thought they were
The
going to be
glass ceiling?
Yeah, no, literally. They
So
thought,
for people who don't understand, this is Hillary Clinton's
the
party.
yes.
And it's a literal glass ceiling.
At the
correct.
Javits.
Is it Kravitz or Javits?
Javits.
I get all messed up. Javits. Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
Shout out to
So-
Lenny
For a second, I was
Kravitz.
like, wait, what are you talking? Oh, no,
Yeah, Javits,
right.
Kravitz. Kravitz is in Palm Beach. So at the Javits Center. And they thought they were going to a wedding and they went to a funeral. And that
But it's-
does massive psychological damage and trauma. And they swore a blood oath that night. Do not mistake the pettiness in New York political elite.
I was rewatching the debates 2016 Trump-Hillary, and when she's like, you guys better be glad that someone with Donald Trump's temperament isn't in charge of the law in this country. And he's like, because you'd be in jail. And then he just looked at her, and they looked at each other, and I'm like, that's why they're going after him.
It's petty, it's pathological, it's personal. And so Donald Trump psychologically scorned these people. And they said, we're going to get you back. And now they look, when he's arraigned tomorrow, there will be a population of New York that says it took us 7 years, but you stole that night from us. And you might have got Amy Coney Barrett, you might have got Kavanaugh, you might have got all these different people on the Supreme Court, but now we got you. If
But that implies this is the end of it. I don't believe that.
no. It's just
Well, they have additional charges. I mean, the DOJ, as you said, the DOJ is now looking at obstruction charges.
The Secret Service is
Yeah.
going to testify against them in D.C.
Oh, no, it's not the end. No. But if we're talking about New York politics, we're talking about who is in Alvin Bragg's ear. The New York City elite, primary Hillary Clinton, that is very petty, very personal, very political. This is about revenge. And there's other games to be played here with Jack Smith at the DOJ and the woman in Fulton County because of the phone call Trump made, which was perfectly fine. So then there's another theory that they're doing this to try to take Trump off the chessboard. I'm not as convinced of that one. This one just seems to be revenge politics.
Perhaps, but I just don't see a circumstance where they can set this chain of events in motion and then appease their constituents by backing down.
No, I think that's right. And therefore, the room for error is almost nothing. And when you overcharge and create a crime with a, quote, exotic legal theory, as Maggie Haberman said on television, you might let a lot of people down. Again,
Yeah.
the legal system in America is designed to allow people that are overcharged, that have good legal representation, to fight it. Now, you might be as cynical about New York as possible. I do not have faith in the pattern of behavior we've seen in the New York legal system, but everything will be examined. Every single charging sentence and syllable is going to be hyper criticized.
So there's a potential, I imagine, of this going to an appeals court.
Correct.
Or even being escalated to U.S. appellate federal courts.
Supreme Court, potentially.
Supreme Court. I think there's a decent percentage chance that actually happens. But in the meantime, I think we're going to see hyper-partisan, politicized law enforcement and judiciary, because too much of what I see is what I refer to as the freedom faction, which consists of disaffected liberals, libertarians, conservatives, believing, well, there's rules. And the rules say it must be done this way. And then it's like, dude, they firebombed a car and then got let go.
No, I'm not even making that argument. I'm just saying that there's a plenty room for error for these people that think that Trump is 100% going to prison. That a lot can go wrong. That they're overcharging, they're creating a crime that doesn't exist, they're upgrading a misdemeanor to a felony. Also, Michael Cohen is going to be your star witness.
I mean, the only way I see this going in Trump's favor is if after conviction it goes to an appellate court with a Trump-appointed judge, and that gives the Democrats an out of his own appointee just freed him.
Recuse himself, yeah.
Well, that's their out. To avoid going all the way down.
Yeah, but it would be a state judge. It wouldn't be a Trump-appointed judge. It wouldn't be a Supreme
That's what I'm
Court
saying.
judge.
It would have to only be if it goes to the federal level. Having some kind of federal court intervene in constitutional
How would
grounds.
it get to a federal level? It's
It would be
state
on-
at this point. And also
it would be
the
process, that's
federal prosecutors had already declined to prosecute this
Mm-hmm.
ages ago.
I do not see a circumstance where New York political establishment says we've decided to let Trump go. I just don't see it. I do not see a jury of New Yorkers being
I
like.
think you're right. I don't disagree with that, but I also
So this ends up with Trump facing sentencing.
potentially. I'm not saying it's certain. There's a lot that can go wrong
This is
for them. I mean, and go right for those of us that believe in the Constitution.
Actual justice.
But how?
I mean, I could go through the list again, right? They're overcharging.
But so who's going to intervene and say this is an overcharge? The Democrat DA, the Democrat lawyers, the Democrat population?
There's potentially a judge that doesn't want to get disbarred or put in front of disciplinary.
Disbarred from who in New York State Court?
This is interesting because you're saying nobody is going to follow the rules that exist.
No
And you're
New
saying
York
that there are
Democrat,
rules.
no New York judge is sitting there thinking, well, the Democratic establishment that controls New York State is going to disbar me. They're thinking I will be disbarred if I don't put Trump in jail.
Well, look, you might be right, but considering how insane these charges are and how damaging they are, this is far from we're assuming what the indictment is. We don't know exactly what's in it yet. It's far from a signed, sealed, and delivered case, right? And here's the thing. Trump's going to try to stretch out the timeline here, and he will use it to his advantage. Every one of these local actors is now going to be under a national spotlight and national examination. I'll give you a couple examples. Everybody now working in the DA's office that's going to touch this case, their social media histories will now be examined. They're not going to be comfortable with conservative, freedom-loving media shining a light on them. And if hey, hold on. Kyle Rittenhouse is largely free today because of free media that was on the street, and we shined a light and we exposed them.
But he was also in it was a Wisconsin court, and Wisconsin is very strongly conservative.
No, not so much. That's not totally true. I mean, Wisconsin has a Democrat governor. It's more sane than New York. I'll give you that for sure. What I'm getting at, though, is I think the New York political community is going to be shocked at how big of a deal this is going to be, how much their failures are going to be put on spotlight, and these people are overcharging him. We know that.
Yeah, but that only matters
then maybe
to
it's
someone
so
playing
what?
by the rules, man.
I don't think they're playing by the rules.
So why would they care about overcharging?
Because you're going to find a couple people that still have some shame.
Shame, who do they fear? So you live in New York. You're a judge who lives in New York City. You know what you fear? You fear Antifa coming to your home with bricks and Molotov cocktails.
Let me have a counter argument. If it's that signed, sealed, and delivered, why didn't Cyrus charge Trump on these? Why brag?
I don't know.
Because there's not unanimity that this is a good idea. That's why.
Well, here's what I see.
This is a risk. If it was, Cyrus would have done it. He was a way better prosecutor, way better respected, way more kind of white-collar law firm. Alvin Bragg is like a street thug that has become a DA.
Who campaigned on going after Trump.
Correct.
Sure did.
Won,
So,
and now he's doing
but
it.
the
So did Letitia James.
the fact that other DAs passed on this case shows that there's a risk element here that favors Donald Trump.
Or Because they didn't, a new guy gets in who's escalating things.
Well, that could be the case, but it's not as if Cyrus wanted to get him indicted. He would have loved nothing more. I mean, the guy was a total Trump hater. He would have been the darling of the New York City elite.
But maybe this is not so much about risk as it is escalation. Maybe this is
that's
the
a
point.
separate argument, though, right? So is it about Trump or is it about trying to distract from the looming currency collapse and banking crisis to incite violence amongst the American right so that then they can clamp down on us and say, see, these people can't handle freedom.
That's
they
a good
can't
point.
handle liberty. We're going to try to raise the temperature in the room because the American currency is about to collapse.
Do you
Let me-
guys
let me
think
pull
that
up
the
the-
National Democratic Party wants this to happen, or do you think Bragg is doing this despite them potentially not wanting it?
That's a good question, too. I mean, I think they may not want it to happen.
I kinda think that, too.
They may be saying, look how much money he's making. His polling is skyrocketing. You need to chill out. And this dumb local level guy is being like, I'm winning. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.